Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today we're doing one of those rare driving around podcasts. I guess today I want to talk about, what if the change already happened? The change that Dr. David M. Jacobs always talks about. The author of books like The Threat and Walking Among Us. Like, I always circle back to those two books because, that guy there, he did stuff that other researchers just have not done. And so I think we have to go by what he says. That's what I say. Because nobody else really does any research the way this guy does. Not these days anyway. There's no one alive, I don't think, that is doing the kind of research that David M. Jacobs conducted. Right? So what if we're living in this change where these alien creatures, they've been abducting people for decades apparently, or who knows how long, maybe for the entire time we've been here. We can't say, but I think it's probably been going on, probably since the 20th century. That's probably when it started, but who knows? We can't say. Maybe it's going on longer. But the bottom line is this, is that a lot of abductees under hypnosis recalled hearing something about some big change coming down the pike from these beings. Okay, so what are they doing? These beings are sprinkling hybrid beings among us right now. Like, I'm driving around the highway right now. For all I know, that car that's going the other way here, right? Who knows? Maybe that's a hybrid driving that. A hybrid, half alien, half human creature. Here comes another one. I don't know. You don't know who's who. It's like we're living in basically we're living in an invasion of the body snatchers. That's what it would be. And it might be, for as insane as it sounds. But the bottom line is here's, based on what we know, right? Based on all the evidence that we have to this point, we're not alone, folks. And if we see the evidence, right? We see the aliens. I mean, that's just like people describe people who have been abducted over the decades. They describe these alien beings. We have them on video. Like, I'm not even impressed anymore. Let me say this. I'm not even impressed when I see a video like I saw a couple of weeks ago. They were showing an orb floating over Iran right before the war started, right? I was like, okay, yeah, so what? Big deal, big whoop. I mean, I don't even care. It doesn't fade. Like, seeing images of aliens or anything anymore. It's really not that big of a deal. We know that they're here. There should be no surprise. It's not surprising to me. None of it is. Right? So then we have to start thinking about, okay, what's next now? We know that there's something here. We know that the government's lying about it for sure, right? We have the evidence now that the government's been lying, and they've been covering this up. I mean, so what else do we really need? We need to start thinking about what's happening here. Maybe the change already happened. That's what I'm starting to think. Maybe the change is already in effect. Isn't it funny? I mean, we have all this evidence out there floating around, and yet no one's really talking about it. I mean, there's people making a buck on this, talking about, oh yeah, we're going to get disclosure next month or something. There's people who keep talking a big game, but we never get to that, the finish line here, where the whole world is finally alerted to the fact that there is an alien presence on this planet, right? Non-human intelligence, whatever it is, right? I know we can't say, we don't know where they come from. I think they come from other planets, but who knows, right? But there is something here, and now that we know that there's something here, when we see them with our own eyes, right? We see video evidence of them. We have all this witness testimony from decades now, decade upon decades worth of witness testimony, but yet, the scientific world is operating under the assumption that none of this is real and it's not been proven. What are you talking about? It has been proven. It is proved. We have the proof right now, but nobody wants to acknowledge it. And so that makes me wonder, maybe we're already living under the change. Maybe the change is already in effect, right? So when you see, a lot of times when you present proof about the alien presence, like I do it on a regular basis on my podcast, and then every now and then you get a dum-dum that comes in there and says, no, I don't see anything. I don't see any alien. Oh, that must be pareidolia. Oh, that must be a hoax or something like that. They just can't accept it. Now, some of these people, I believe, are legitimately stupid, right? Some of them could be government plants in there to try to, confuse people, right? It could be that. But maybe, right? What if some of these people are the ones who are denying this? What if they're the hybrids? They're in here to spread disinformation, to confuse the people who aren't really paying that much attention to this, the casual the casually interested person, right? What if that's what's going on here? What if we're not getting disclosure, right? Maybe the hybrids have taken control within governments as well, right? They could have people in high positions here, calling the shots, right? Or controlling the people around them, with their abilities to the same way the aliens are able to do it. The hybrids are able to do it too. Maybe they're controlling the people. I've talked about stuff like this before, but this is what could be happening here, folks. The change could already be instituted. We might be operating right now. The whole world could be under some sort of alien control, and we just don't understand it yet. We don't realize it. We haven't caught up. I mean, when you read Jacob's books, it starts going back to the 90s with the threat. He was talking about the aliens were saying then the change is coming soon, very soon. This change is coming soon. And what is the change? According to him, according to his research, according to all these abductees, the change involves these insectoid beings being in control of everything. Maybe that's what's going on right now. Maybe that's why the world sucks at this point. Maybe there's all this stuff going on, all these wars in Europe and in the Middle East, all this stuff. And everything that's happening is just, subterfuge to get everyone's mind on other things rather than what's really important here, that we're actually we've been taken over somehow. We're being controlled right now by some alien force, and maybe it's going to get worse, but maybe it's the early stages of the change. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. You would think that when evidence that comes out that shows unequivocally that we're not alone, that there's no getting out of it anymore, there's no denying it anymore, you would think. And that evidence has now been available for just about 2 years. We're talking about the Vegas case. Still, people don't want to acknowledge it, or they want to act like it means nothing. And, I still don't get that, but I wonder, maybe the people in control in certain media outlets, in certain corporate media, in the mainstream news outlets, that they have they're being controlled. They're being told you can't do this. Not just possibly by people within the Pentagon telling them, hey, you can't go there with this, right? Don't do it. Don't you dare do it. There could be stuff like that going on behind the scenes. I'm not saying that that's not going on. It could be, but it also could be that pulling the strings and that nobody realizes are these hybrids that are sprinkled out here all across the planet. They could be all over the place. You don't know. I mean, how do you know? Who do you know? How do you know who's who here in this kind of a situation? Now, I really hate conspiracy theories, right? But there is no question, right? The one conspiracy theory that I have no choice but to believe is real is the conspiracy to cover up the reality that we're not alone. There's no question about it. There are people in charge in different countries who believe that their power, apparently, they believe that their power relies on people being fooled into believing that there's nothing going on here. That's what they think. Obviously, if they didn't, then they would have told us the truth a long time ago. There are people in the higher ups. I could understand early on, after Roswell, for instance. Oh yeah, people were scared in the government. We can't tell the public this. We don't know how they'll react. There might be mass panic across the world. I get it, right? But we're beyond that now. But yet these games are still getting played. I want to see all the records, folks. I want to see the Roswell records. I want to see the Roswell reports, like I've been saying a lot recently after Trump made those comments. I mean, do I believe him? Right? No. I think that this is most probably was just a ploy to, who knows, to cause a distraction. But you know what? At the same time, so what? If that's the way we're going to get disclosure, then that's the way we're going to get disclosure. We have to get it one way or the other, and why not that way? I guess any way is fine with me at this point. I think that the world needs to know the truth, right? Now, I have heard that Tim Burchett he was reporting recently that he has been bending the ear of President Trump, telling Trump basically that they're not even telling you all the stuff, sir, right? Maybe that will help. But here's the thing. I think that all presidents have to know something. They would have to be told something. You could not leave all presidents in the lurch on this subject. They would have to know that there is a non-human intelligence here among us,
and that's all you need to know. We're not going to tell you anything. I think it's probably something to that effect. You can't tell anybody else. The people behind the scenes are probably telling presidents, if you tell the world the truth, they probably provide some sort of an excuse, like everyone's going to panic. It's going to be, the whole world's going to, the stock market's going to completely crash. They're probably filling their presidents' heads with all kinds of ridiculous concepts about what's going to happen. And some of it could be all made up. It could be all hybrid mischief, right? How do we know? If they're among us right now, and they could have caused this situation we're in right now. They're the reason why we're not being told the truth. That could be why disclosure is being held up. That's what it could be. Speaking of hybrids, you have to wonder if they're all over the place. Then that means, like, you could be walking around a grocery store and there could be a family of 4 walking around there. The wife is a regular old human being, but how do you know whether the husband is a regular old human being? Maybe the husband is hybrid. How do you know? Or vice versa. That's how they say they're integrating into our society, basically by mating with non-hybrids. So they create all these hybrid, half alien, half human creatures, spread them out throughout the world, have them mate with non-hybrids and basically create more hybrids this way, until eventually the whole world is populated by nothing but hybrids. And how would you tell? Like, do they have, like, when they run into each other, do they know? Do they recognize, oh, this guy here is a hybrid, I remember him, right? And do they have, like, private telepathic conversations when they bump into each other out when they're out and about? Does that happen? You have to wonder about stuff like this. This is all the kinds of weird thoughts that you have when you know that this phenomenon is real. And also, it's one of those concerning issues you would have to imagine is what's delaying disclosure from government officials, because how does the public grapple with this? That is a big problem, and I understand it, but I think everybody needs to know about this. I mean, otherwise we're just allowing invasion of the body snatchers to go, unchallenged. Just let it happen. There's nothing we can do about it. Well, I think there is something you can do about it. I mean, these are some of the reasons why we should have disclosure. I mean, this is something that should be getting studied by scientists, openly, not privately. I understand why some people wanted to keep it private at first, but this could be out of control at this point. I believe that the people responsible for the cover-up, it's not just people within government, okay? There's a bunch of moron debunkers, right? They're responsible for this. They do not want the truth to come out, because then they're going to be proven wrong. It's very important to the debunker cult, right, that they're right. They want to go through the rest of their lives believing that they were correct about all of this stuff, right? They can't deal with being wrong, right? But that's very unfortunate. It's unfortunate for them. They are wrong. They've been wrong. They've always been wrong, okay? So the hell with them. The hell with the people within the government that are in control of this, that have somehow, for some reason, been given this great honor of being gatekeepers to the truth, so the rest of the world doesn't know, but they get to know, right? For some reason they could deal with it, but the rest of us, we're too stupid to deal with it, right? So you got people in the government, you got the debunkers, you got a bunch of just regular old morons and idiots who just can't believe in it. There's a lot of religious fanatics too. There's a lot of religious fanatics in this who can't accept the reality that there's some other intelligent presence here among us, right? So these are people who are against disclosure coming, right? And then, of course, you have that possible wild card in there too, the hybrids themselves. I would have to imagine if this operation by these aliens, right, to create this hybrid race, to have all these alien spies living among us, right? I mean, obviously, if they're doing that, that means they're planning on taking over. There would be no other reason for this, right? They're taking us over from the inside out. That's what it would mean. And so they don't want anyone to know about this. So those are the kinds of people we're fighting against, right? It's these idiots in the government, and some of those people in the government have there's different reasons, I think, too. I think that some of them do not want disclosure because of their religious beliefs. They believe that this would upset their religious apple carts, right? So it will just destroy the belief system, right? So they want to pretend it doesn't mean anything. It must be demons from hell, right? So you got that contingent within the government. And then also within the government, you got the military-industrial complex mindset that doesn't want disclosure because they want to continue to try to reverse engineer these crafts secretly behind the scenes without anybody knowing about it, no other countries knowing about it, just for military advantages and money and power. That's what it comes down to, those people. And then I would have to imagine there's probably a small segment within government who know about this, but they like the idea that they know about it, but other people don't. They feel that gives them that they feel like they have power then. That gives them some false sense of power, like they're of being better than anybody else, right? So you got that probably as well. And then of course the debunker morons, and of course just regular old stupid people, and then the hybrids. So they're the various groups responsible for this continuing cover-up. Apparently, I mean, we should have had the truth by the early 2018, right after that New York Times article ran. They should have just come clean at that point then, right? Then we wouldn't be talking like this right now. We would be, all of us would be studying and what the information the government has compiled up to that point. We should have been talking about the different things at this point, rather than I'm tired of trying to convince people, right? Because there's really, I mean, if the evidence is there. If you can't see it, then there's nothing anybody can do for you. You don't want to believe it, right? You don't want your world rocked. You want to continue the way things are. You like the status quo. You don't want change. You don't like that, right? You don't want to have to look at this whole existence in a different way. You're just not ready for it. You just don't want to face it. And that could be another reason for this nonsense that we're going through with this cover-up that continues. I don't know. Yeah, the entire hybrid story, the entire hybrid situation is really... it sucks having to talk about stuff like this because, it sounds so crazy. I mean, it sounds crazy to me. And I know what it would sound like to somebody who's uninformed on this whole topic, who has no inkling of what research has, wrought over the decades with regards to this phenomenon. I mean, it goes so much deeper than just lights in the sky and alien abductions, for that matter. It goes so much deeper. Then when you get into the nitty-gritty of it, you realize, wait a minute. Okay, these beings are being extremely secretive about whatever they're doing, right? They've been abducting people for decades that we know of. I mean, we don't know how far back it goes, but it has been going on, right? Since what, 40s, 50s? I mean, there's been reports from the 20s, right? So there's alien abductions that have been going on, but then it gets deeper than that. If you try to tell people, well, look at it looks like they're trying to integrate themselves into our society. Basically, they using our DNA to create creatures that look like us, but it's really them, right? It has attributes of these beings. And what happens at some point in the future, right? There's concerns about what will happen should disclosure happen, right? You hear this, like you hear people like Lou Elizondo make statements to that effect, saying there's will there be a reaction from the phenomenon? Well, you know what? Who cares? I don't think that should matter. It shouldn't matter if there's going to be, you shouldn't be worried about if there's going to be a reaction from the phenomenon. You just, you say what you know and you say it publicly, and then you have this whole situation outed. I mean, because people need to know the extent of this. I mean, it could involve a hybridization program. It could actually involve that, as insane as it sounds. You just wonder about it, though, like, you could be anywhere and you wouldn't be able to tell. You could be, in the supermarket, in the convenience store, at church, at school, whatever. And sprinkled among that group of what you think is all people, right? There could be aliens there. You don't realize it. And those aliens could be communicating with each other right in front of you telepathically, and you don't see, you don't understand it. You don't catch on to it because we're just blind to it. And they're just like laughing. I mean, to me, it seems like if this is true, if this is how they're taking this over, right, through this hybridization program, then I think that this is one of the biggest reasons to me why this should have been disclosed to the public a long time ago. Because now it's probably, it might be too late. Like I said, like the way I started off this conversation, the change might have already occurred. And we might be living under the change right now. And all this stuff, all this nonsense going on in the world right now, all of it, it's nothing but subterfuge, right? To get everyone's mind off of this kind of stuff. Oh, don't worry about UFO disclosure. Oh, you don't need to worry about that. Let's worry about Iran. Let's worry about, what's going on over there in Israel and Gaza and over there in Ukraine and Russia. Let's all worry about that stuff. And that's the other thing too. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Instead of fighting each other, we should be all working together to try to figure out what's going on here with this presence. That makes me wonder sometimes. Maybe the change involves, okay, we're going to take control of this, and we're going to create all these diversions for the human race to be concerned themselves with. And meanwhile, we're just going to continue our hybridization program until at some point in the future, there's, everyone's not human. At some point in the future, everyone's an alien hybrid. And they're all like, it's like an invasion of the body snatchers succeeds. I know that some of you probably have seen those movies before, but that's what this could be. This could be a situation similar to that, right? I mean, not exactly, but similar, and most certainly permanent if it pans out for them. And I think it is panning out because nobody seems to want to talk about this aspect of it. You never hear about this. A lot of big names in the UFO community don't want to go there because they know that it sounds crazy. That's why a lot of people don't talk about this. There's going to be a lot of people who see this podcast who are going to think, my God, this guy's off his rocker. Well, that's what it sounds like. If you haven't been following this ever, right, and you're just starting to pay attention now, yeah, this sounds crazy, and you don't want anything to do with it. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want it to be talking about hybrids, alien hybrids. It sounds crackpot. I get it, believe me. But the bottom line is that we know that they're here. We've talked about the evidence. I encountered one of these beings with my own eyes, and then you have to consider the research by people like David M. Jacobs. I mean, what he showed that there's most certainly something weird going on. All these people are telling him the same thing under hypnosis. How is that possible? It's not possible. That's because something weird is going on here, folks, and that's why this should be disclosed. More than any reason is because of the potentiality that we're being absorbed by some alien race. That's why this is necessary. That's how I see it anyway. Doesn't make me right, but hey, I think, I take that back. I think this time it does make me right. I think that of all reasons for disclosure, this one here, the possibility that there's a hybridization program going on by these aliens who are apparently slowly trying to absorb us, so at some point these insectoid mantis creatures, as crazy as that sounds, are like totally in command of everything here. Imagine. It sounds crazy, but you know what? It's just the way things are. And that's just the way the situation is. And unfortunately, it is a discussion item that's not discussed enough amongst people in the community. A lot of talking heads don't want to talk about it. Instead, they want to focus on, look at that bright light over Iran right before the war started. Oh, hey, here's another military video that was leaked. Oh my God. To me, it's like that scene in Jaws. I always loved that one scene in Jaws when the mayor's talking, and he's trying to talking to the Sheriff Brody, and he's saying something to the effect of, hey, you yell barracuda, everyone says, huh? What? And you yell shark, and you got a panic on your hands on the 4th of July. Remember that scene? That's the same thing in this situation. You yell, oh, light in the sky, everyone says, like that's how I feel at this point. Like, huh? What? Right? I mean, yeah, you don't know this by this point, right? That's how I feel, right? But if you talk about hybrids, oh, then you can't talk about that, then you got to panic on no, we got to talk about it. Not panic or no panic, people need to know that could be the situation here. And speaking of that, let me just, I printed out this one possible hybrid story off of humanoid encounters on Reddit, one of my favorite subreddits, and I just pulled into this alcove here along the highway, and we'll just read this quick and then we'll be on our merry way again. But This was from somebody from Germany posted this. It says, hey, I just heard about this subreddit from a YouTube video, and it made me think of an encounter I had while working a part-time job during university. In 2022, I used to work evening shifts from 2 p.m. to 11:30 in a hotel in a 100,000 plus population city in Bavaria, Germany, which meant that basically 90% of your tasks is just checking in guests. On this particular day, it was me and a female colleague that I'm still good friends with, and we both remember this day vividly. So it was already late-ish, probably around 6 p.m., so most of the check-ins were already done. There were only a couple guests yet to arrive. This meant that we were mostly just chatting to each other and not working. Then a family of 3 arrives, mom, dad, and son. The thing is, all 3 were pretty much looked like default caricatures. The dad was super tall and skinny, bald, and wore a massive backpack and sandals like a German tourist caricature. The mum was short, curvy, blonde, once again like one of those typical Oktoberfest waitresses, and the 7 to 8-year-old son was just like a default character in a video game. As soon as they entered the lobby, there was a tangible vibe shift for some reason. They all seemed so tense that me and my colleague also got tense and serious, despite us usually being chatty to our guests. Anyways, I checked them. They didn't make a sound. I showed them where the elevators are. They went in that direction, and as soon as they were around the corner, the tense feeling was gone. My colleague immediately whispered to me, damn, what was wrong with them? And I thought the same thing, but we forget about them and carry on just chatting. Then the next guest arrives. Bear in mind, this is at least 10 minutes later, maybe even 20. Normal lady. We check her in. She asks us about restaurants in the city. Then, once again, I show her where the elevator is. She goes there. We hear the elevator door open. She immediately says, oh, sorry, and we hear the door close again. I thought it's some cleaners going into the basement, as that is where the cleaning supplies were. But then the lady comes back to us and tells us that there's a family in the elevator just standing there, and they aren't going anywhere. Both me and my colleague were like, no blanking way. So we walk up to the elevator, press the button, and sure enough, it opens instantly, and it's the weird family, and they are all just standing there like mannequins, gazing ahead but not looking at us. Then after like 3 seconds, my colleague says, are you guys okay? And this reactivated them. Still super weird, but they start politely smiling, and the mom says, first time she says anything, by the way, we are okay, thank you for asking. And the dad presses the button that takes them to their floor. Then we wait, call the elevator again, and the other lady also gets to her room. Me and my colleague then go back to the reception and just look at each other like, WTF is going on? Those caricature-looking NPC behavior people were just standing in the elevator in idle mode for 10 plus minutes? Even now, 4 years later, we both remember this story, and it's a thing that gets brought up by our friend group whenever we see someone behaving oddly. One of our friends said that they might have zoned out from being tired, but this encounter was too weird for my taste. Okay, maybe they zoned out from a long journey or something, but maybe they didn't. They were acting pretty weird. I mean, that sounds like, almost like robots. Almost like Men in Black family. That's what it sounds like to me. They're standing in there on idle mode. I mean, what in God's name was going on in that situation, folks? I don't know. Maybe it was hybrids. Maybe they're in the elevator, right? And they're communicating with their with home base. Right? They're having unbeknownst to the people working at the hotel, maybe what was really going on there was when those people were standing in the elevator, they were having some sort of a communication with alien mantids from a mothership hovering way well above. Are you in yet, maybe? Yes, we are, master. We'll check in with you later. Maybe something like that was going on. Who knows? But again, there's a lot of weird stuff like this, a lot of weird stories. There's a lot of weird encounters that people have had with the parent hybrids. We know that a lot of alien abductees are forced to train them to live amongst human beings, as weird as that sounds. But, this is the biggest issue, again, folks. You see, that Germany story, that's a possible one. Who knows what was going on with that? But it might be aliens. Who knows? I just think that this story needs to be taken more seriously. And by the way, if you're wondering, I was sitting there on the side of the highway reading. I had pulled over to read that little piece there. I was thinking to myself, I better get out of here. What if a police officer rolls up and says, hey, buddy, what's going on? Are you okay? Pull over. Yeah, officer, I'm just here talking about aliens from outer space. I don't know what you never know how the police might take that, you don't know. That's what that might, that's why I wanted to get out of there quick, just in case. I don't want to have to explain the situation here. Yeah, there might be alien hybrids living among us. Do you know about that?
know what I mean? Anyway, I just want to say this. I want to say thank you all for joining me today. Until next time.